Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 163, and for this one, we're in Vegas, playing on the strip, playing 5-10, and we get into a ton of super big hands. So I know I say similar stuff like that fairly often, but this one in particular is a wild ride. So I think you guys are gonna love it. And we've got some meetup games coming up. Andrew and I are going out to Texas Card House in Rio Grande Valley, June 4th and 5th, and then we're going to the Texas Card House in Dallas, June 8th and June 9th. So I'll have more information in the description box below. Check that out if you're able to attend. And let's get into it. It's another early morning session for me. I'm actually on a pretty normal schedule at the moment. I've strung a couple of small wins together over the last few sessions, but the big wins that were coming easy to me to start the year have been elusive lately. I'm going back to Terry Benedict's casino, where I've done my best the last several months. It's nice to have a place where you're comfortable and relaxed so that you can play up to your full potential. I buy into the 5-10 for 1,500, which is the max. The game looks good. With mostly rec players, there are a couple of sharper pros at the table as well. We waste no time getting involved in hands. Just a few minutes in, we've got ace-king of hearts in the small blind. The button is one of those Euro pros that says about as much at the table as Mimes. He opens at 30. Mute pros from Europe are my favorite people to beat, so I 3-bet to 120. The opponent isn't going to let me get away with it without pushing back. He 4-bets in my face to 300. Alright dude, time to see if you really have what you're repping. There aren't many combinations of aces and kings left. We're going for it. All in?
All in. Call.
Well, it's probably not great to get called that quickly. Surprisingly, we hear him speak.
Once, twice?
Let's go once for blood. We're all in pre-flop for a $3,000 pot almost immediately. Someone's gonna win all of it, and I have no idea if we're ahead. The dealer puts out ace-3 deuce rainbow. We're at least ahead of hands like kings and queens. There's only one combo of aces left. I'm feeling great. The turn is the 10 of spades. That shouldn't have changed anything. The river is the 9 of hearts. It's another card that probably doesn't matter. I flip over my cards expecting to be chopping the pot fairly often. That's not the case this time. The opponent snap mucks. Just like that, we win an enormous pot to start the session. We get a count on my chips, then collect a yellow bird. I have to say, I like this young European guy a lot more now than I did a few minutes ago. I have no idea what he had. I imagine we were flipping. I suppose there's a small possibility that we had him dominated since it was a small blind versus button situation, and he's an aggressive player. Still, these have been the type of big hands that haven't been going my way much the last few weeks. We're off to a great start. Let's see if we can add to it with pocket aces in the big blind. Under the gun is allergic to money, and he min raises to 20. That's not a real sizing. I 3-bet to 100. The under the gun player wants to dance. He calls for 80 more. We're heads up out of position. The flop is king 9-7 rainbow. It's a fairly connected board with lots of straight draws possible. Maybe my opponent can have a king too. I bet 120. The player apparently didn't get a piece of it. He folds. I'm feeling like this is exactly the type of session that I needed, in which I can just coast through the whole thing and make piles of cash. Next we've got 10-9 suited in the small blind. The button limps in. I call for 5 more. The big blind raises to 50. He's had several drinks, but appears to be winning, and in the short time that I've been here, I haven't seen him get out of line, so I'm not sure if he's putting on a show or is actually pretty tipsy. The button calls. I'm closing the action with a playable hand, and I'm getting almost 3-1. I call. We're going 3 ways to the flop, out of position. It's 9-5 deuce, all spades. We have top pair. It's a lot of the wrong suit out there, though. We all check. Maybe I have the best hand after all. The turn is another deuce. That shouldn't have helped anyone. I bet 110. The big blind immediately calls. The button folds. We're heads up. The river is the 4 of hearts. I check for pot control. The big blind bets 200. It's odd to me that he checked the flop after raising from the big blind pre-flop, but now feels good enough about his hand to bet the river with a lot of low cards on the board. Maybe he flopped a flush and has been playing tricky. I'm not sure what's going on, but I need to find out.
All right. What do you have?
What do you have?
No, my question is what do you have? I have king.
Kings are good. Oh, king deuce. Okay. Yeah. No, that's
Too much. I want to...
Bro, I just have king. Other card gone missing. You can totally trust me, dude. I would never slow roll you. Never. It's actually pretty funny what he did, but I'm not going to forget. He will be punished in the future, big time. In this one, we've got pocket 4s on the button. Under the gun +1 limps in with a short stack. The cutoff raises to 40. I call. My buddy from the last hand pulls out 3 $10 chips to call, but he seems like he might be playing his own game in his head.
20? 40. 20.
Under the gun +1 calls for 40 or 20 or whatever you want to call it as well. We're going 4 ways to the flop in position. It comes 6 deuce deuce with 2 spades. Checks to me. I might have the best hand. This is my only opportunity to go for it since nearly every turn will be bad for me. I bet 110. The big blind doesn't like that, and he has this to say about it. I think he said something about needing to go home in order to change his Facebook status. I'm not sure. Under the gun +1 has a different response. He shoves for 210 total. The cutoff folds. I'm not too thrilled about the jam, but it's only 100 more. I could easily be up against a flush draw, so I'm not getting away from it.
All in. Okay. Call.
Yeah, I guess.
210.
We're heads up in another all-in pot. The turn is the jack of hearts. No help to me. There's not much that can help anyway. The river is the 8 of hearts. To no one's surprise, we lose. How we lose is remarkable though. The player has ace-8 of diamonds. He ripped it in, having no fold equity for 210 with 2 overs and a backdoor flush draw. Then he smashed the river to scoop the pot.
Hi, son. Trying to give me all the money. I can't win it.
After being up 1,500 right away, we're going in the wrong direction and are only up about 875. We pick up pocket 10s in the small blind. The guy who got us with ace-8 limps in again. The button calls. There will be no limp pot. I raised to 60. Both of the limpers call. We're going 3 ways to the flop, out of position. It becomes jack 4 deuce with 2 clubs. I probably have the best hand. I can't let more clubs or more overcards come out. I bet 80 to clear out the riffraff that these people are limp calling with. The ace-8 player jams on us again.
Oh, I guess I better put that in too.
It's for 415 total. He's a super nice older gentleman that I'm sure isn't familiar at all with the YouTube channel, but for someone who's unaware what Bradley dollars are, he's going after him about as hard as I've ever seen. The button folds. I definitely have the last hand in the back of my mind where he raised shoved with nothing. This is for more money and has a slightly different feel to it. I could be drawing close to dead if he has a jack. A huge part of me wants to call, but if he's jamming all the time, maybe it's best to be patient and wait for a slightly better spot. I fold here. I make one request to him though. Run and hide. If he should be picked up next week buying a $100,000 Bradley dollar sports car in Newport Beach, I'm going to be supremely disappointed because those are my dollars and I'm coming for him. The very next hand, we're dealt pocket 8s on the button. The nemesis who shoved on us the previous 2 hands we've gone over completely disregards my advice to run and hide. He limps in from under the gun +1. The cutoff raises to 40. I call. The action's on the big blind who slow rolled me earlier. We've already determined that he doesn't like the amount 40. He does what he wants.
Benny.
No, we get it's 4 of those. It's 4 of those.
Really?
4.
Easy, please, easy. Please.
Yeah, boy.
We've got quite the cast of characters here. I feel like we're in poker's version of SNL's Jeopardy, and the big blind is Sean Connery. Under the gun +1 calls, so both players that I have to get revenge on are in there. We're going 4 ways to the flop in position. The big blind emphatically checks dark. The dealer puts out king 8-6 with 2 clubs. We flop middle set in a multi-way pot. Under the gun +1 checks. The cutoff checks. This is such a great situation. I bet 110. The big blind gets the chip denominations wrong, but ultimately gets the right amount out there, and he does it just for me.
1 and 10. Just for the blue eyes.
The other player that I need to crush, min raises to 220, is the second hand in a row that he's raised me on the flop, and the 3rd time in the last 15 minutes. The cutoff folds. I'm going to try and get as much money in now as possible. I re-raised to 500. The big blind isn't afraid. He makes the call. Under the gun +1 only has 640 total, yet he calls as well and leaves himself with 140 behind. This is already a massive pot. There are so many cards that I won't be happy to see. The 8 of hearts is not one of them. We drill quads with piles of money in the middle. Both players are likely drawing dead. The big blind checks. Under the gun +1 jams for his remaining 140. This actually puts me in kind of a weird spot. I want to extract as much money as I can out of the big blind since he has about 1350 in his stack, but I don't want to raise so much that he folds. In a multi-way pot, after I 3-bet on the flop and put in a raise on the turn when someone has already shoved, my line is going to look a lot like I have a boat. So I'd expect the big blind to fold to larger sizings, knowing that if he has ace-5 of clubs, for instance, that he likely won't have any outs. I grab my yellow bird to release it back in the wild where it belongs, but I only bet 500 of it to milk him, build up a side pot, and entice a call or potentially a bluff if the big blind decides a trip 8s is a good hand for him to rep. The opponent slides in a call. There's a significant side pot that takes some time for the dealer to sort out. I suppose there's a tiny chance that the big blind has a king. There's a much better chance that he has clubs. I'm rooting for one on the river. The dealer puts out the 7 of hearts. The entire pot is going to us eventually. It's just a matter of whether or not the rest of the big blind stack will be included in it. He checks. I've only got one move that makes sense. I shove for 850 effective. The big blind must have had a draw. He almost immediately folds. We turn over the quads. I'm excited to show everybody and win the pot, especially since things haven't been going particularly well for me over the previous 10 sessions or so. Looks like we're back to moving in the right direction, and the other players at the table are very cool about it.
You got two pairs, 8 and 8. Two pairs. That's damn good hand. I like that hand.
The yellow bird is returned to us, and the rest of the chips in the middle follow soon after. The sweet old man didn't run and hide. My patience to wait for a better spot pays off. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster, but we're up about 2,500 on the session. I wasn't able to get all the second opponent's money in the quads hand, but he straddles and I pick up pocket aces again. I'm in the small blind. I raise to 100. The under the gun player might have somewhere else to be. He calls, we're heads up, out of position. The flop comes 5 deuce deuce with 2 spades. We've got the ace of clubs and the ace of spades. No need to be too worried about either of those flush draws coming in. The opponent shouldn't have a deuce. I need to keep him in when he's likely going to be drawing extremely thin. I down bet to 60. Under the gun thinks for a while. He only has 500 in his stack. He doesn't want to give up for such a small amount. He calls. Now I'm focused on getting the remainder of his stack. The turn is the 6 of clubs. I increase the bet size to 140. The player may have liked the turn. He calls once more, a bit quicker this time. We're reeling him in. The opponent only has 300 behind. The river is the jack of diamonds. It's time to go for it. I announce that I'm all in, and I put in enough chips to cover him. He slides in his stack for a call. I turn over the aces. They're good. I'm not sure exactly what the other player has, but we must have gotten a great run out to win the maximum because he exposes the jack of clubs. My guess is that he turned a flush draw on his way to rivering top pair. Maybe he had king jack or queen jack suited. Another big pot comes our direction. That's the third opponent that we've either doubled up through or stacked. We're winning over 3,000. It's a great day of poker, and it's not over. I get involved in back-to-back hands again. Here I've got pocket deuces on the button and a straddle pot. The hijack is a European pro that we beat with ace king. He's first to act since we're playing 6-handed, and he opens a 50. The cutoff calls. He's been limping and calling raises with all kinds of hands. I call to set mine. The big blind calls. The under the gun straddler calls. We're going 5 ways to the flop in position, and it's 8-7 deuce rainbow. We've got bottom set in another multi-way pot. The big blind and the under the gun player check. The hijack bets 100. The cutoff calls. I'm not going to slow play with this many opponents. I raise to 400. It folds back to the cutoff. He calls for 300 more. It's down to heads up. The turn is a 4. It completes one of the straight draws, but so would any 5, 6, 9, 10, or jack. The cutoff checks. He has 1470 left in his stack. I'm looking to get all of it. I bet 700 for value. The cutoff realizes that's almost half of his remaining chips. If he calls, he won't have much left. He does the hard work for me, and he rips it in. I'm never folding in this situation against this opponent. I call almost immediately. We're playing a pot of over $4,000. If I win, I'll have won over $5,000 in the session in less than 2 hours. There have been so many big hands in such a short time. This is one of the biggest though. It'd be amazing to win it. The river is the 10 of hearts. The opponent immediately shows 6-5 of diamonds. He indeed turned the nuts to crush my soul into tiny pieces. The river didn't give us a boat, so we lose a giant pot. This one is incredibly painful. We were running so good, and we were in a prime situation to add to it. Instead, a huge chunk of the profit is erased. The opponent doesn't play a single hand more. He racks up with a lot of my dollars. After all the ups and downs, I'm emotionally spent. I'm not sure I can play my best anymore. I book what's still a big win, and I rack up about a half hour later. That was one of the wildest sessions that I played in a long time. I won 1,100 over just 2 hours. So it was a super short stretch, and a lot of those huge hands were back to back. So it was kind of just adrenaline, kind of just going nonstop for me. I had quads, I had aces a couple times. I had that hand at the end where I flopped bottom set in a 4K pot. Had I won that, I would have been up over 5,000 on the session, which would have been great. And then after that, I just kind of needed a break from all the craziness of this session. So decided to book a win. I haven't won over $1,000 in the last like 13 or 14 sessions. So it's just important to kind of just build up some confidence and chip away at that 9K downswing that I had. So I am doing that, which has been good. I've won the last few sessions, and just gonna keep trying to play my best, and hopefully I'll make it back sooner rather than later. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe buttons. It helps out the channel quite a bit. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and I'm happy to get back to you. So that definitely was a wild session. Unfortunately, we didn't win the 5K, but we did still get a big chunk of money, and I'm trying to build on that. So things are going pretty well in poker as of late. Meetup games are coming back. So Andrew and I are going to Texas. We'll be at the Texas Card House in Rio Grande Valley, June 4th and June 5th. And then we're going to Dallas to play at the Texas Card House there, June 8th and June 9th. So I'll have more information in the description box down below. Come hang out, play some poker. We're gonna have some bomb plots and a lot of other fun stuff. I'm excited to have the meetup games back, and I hope to see you there. All right, guys, good luck at the tables. I'll see you next time, and stay safe. Marvin wants to say bye. All right.